Welcome to this week's Mastering the Markets with me, Matt. I'm a senior analyst at PrimeXBT and I've recently just joined the team. So I'm super excited to be here and to take you through the platform, give you a bit of tips and tricks into my trading style, as well as a little bit more of a deep dive into the crypto futures platform, as well as our CFD's globals market platform. So this is the first session I'm doing with you guys, so it'll be a bit of a tutorial, get you into the swing of things, and then we'll go from there. So let's dive straight into it. So if you guys didn't know already, you can sign up on the PrimeXBT platform by simply visiting our website. Here you can register with your personal details, as well as logging into the platform and making your first deposit if that's the case. So we have a lot of tools and learning and research developments that I think will be quite valuable to you. So if you haven't already seen, a lot of our market research that we do as the analyst team all sits under here. It's an awesome feature. It has a lot of the sort of articles that we put together based on pretty much cryptocurrency, foreign exchange, commodities, as well as indices. So it's really insightful, and there's a lot of information here that I think could be quite of use to you. Under the tools section, we have our super charts, as I like to call them. That basically takes you to our trading view integration, which is really cool, as well as the economic calendar. So today I want to show you just a bit about the economic calendar. I post a lot in my PrimeXBT Telegram channel about these monetary data policy events, and I think it's really cool to know exactly where you can see them yourself. So if you have a look here, you can filter very easily for which country you may be in and which country's economic events you might be interested in. So for example, I'm quite interested in the US, the EU, Canada, as well as Great British Pound. So you can simply just go and deselect the ones that you don't need. This is quite an awesome feature to have. I'll keep the Japanese yen one on as well, and you simply just apply once you're ready to go. So this week we had core inflation and CPI data come out yesterday. It was quite an interesting data release. Month on month, we've seen inflation come down from 2.9 to 2.5%. So marginally a quite significant decrease, if I must say. I'm quite curious to see how the FOMC meeting minutes will play out next week, especially considering, inflation is coming back down to 2%, which is the goal. That's the goal that the Fed is looking for right now. They want inflation to come back down. So let's see how the Fed reacts next week. A lot of analysts and forecasters are expecting price to kind of come in, or especially from an interest rate decision, around 5 to maybe 4.75%. So there's a lot of sort of speculation around what we are going to cut rates to. So let's see how that goes. But yeah, this is pretty much how you can view those sort of economic events that I post. I'm going to take you over now to the PrimeXBT platform. It's a really cool platform. I love it. So for example, here, if you haven't already deposited or you want to know how to, you can simply just click on the deposit icon. You can choose your different deposit methods. So for example, if you want to deposit in crypto, if you want to deposit in fiat, or if you want to simply buy crypto off your credit card, it's as easy as that. So that's pretty much a summary of how you can get your funds into the account. If I go back to my account section here, you can see over here, I have my total funds that are sitting in this account, right? And now this is quite a key part that I want you to pay attention to, right? So if you have a look at our total funds section here, it is quite key to note that your money will sit in various wallets. So when you try and trade or make a sort of execution on, say, the CFD or the crypto futures platform, you cannot do that directly without transferring funds. Now, to transfer your funds, it's not necessary that you're going to transfer funds to another user, to another platform. It's simply just an internal transfer. So you basically click on this right here, and you can see that I've already got my designated Tether wallet because I would like to trade with my USD Tether. You can also trade with whatever deposits you have put into the account. And for today's tutorial, I'm going to take us a bit around the crypto futures platform. So I want to put in, say, $1,000 right here. I simply just punch in the number. If you want to max out your deposit with your total fundings, you just simply press max. I will then go confirm. you can see that the funding would have now left my balance. And if I click on the section here where it says trade, you can see that we have crypto futures as well as CFD trading. Now remember, I moved my funding to the crypto futures platform. So obviously the funding is not going to be sitting in the CFD trading section. If you want to do that, you're going to have to basically do the same thing. So you can simply click on transfer. You can go and then select which wallet you want to go to. So in this scenario, I'll do say $1,000 into the CFD platform. It's the same thing, right? It's really easy. Now you'll see that in both the CFD and the crypto futures section, I've now got a top up of say $1,000 in each, right? Which is awesome. Now, if you want to go and make a trade, you simply go and click on the icon that says trade, and you have both the CFD trading and crypto futures section that you can choose from. So for today's tutorial, I'm going to be taking us around the crypto futures platform. You can see here I've already got some charting analysis already set up. I'm going to take us one step back now, don't worry. And this is pretty much just a summary of the terminal. It's a really easy platform to use. We've got our order book data flow that sits on the right hand side. You can see the total volume that's coming through the platform at any given point in time, as well as the price and which we are trading at. So this is quite an interesting tool to have. I call it the depth of market. It kind of allows you to see where the orders are sitting, where price might be going at any given point in time. So I think it's really useful to use. Now, I don't want to deep dive into this too much as of right now. I want to kind of take us one step back, and that's to the analysis section. So I think it's really key. I showed you where we can find the economic sort of tools as well as the calendar, etc. I've also shown you where you can find our market research. So you've got quite a good, juicy sort of fundamental base that you can use. And now I want to kind of tie in a bit more sort of technicals, right? So if you click on our little drop down over here, you can see analysis, for example. And here I've got simply just the price action of Bitcoin displayed to me. And this might be what you have when you log in for the first time, right? This is pretty much the default settings that we have. And I thought, let me just take you around how you can potentially maybe change your charts a bit. Maybe you want to make them different colors. Maybe you want to see something a bit differently. Maybe you want to add in some indicators, whatever it may be. So for example, if you have a look here in the top right corner next to where it says, well, there's a little camera icon, you click on the settings section, right? So now I've got my chart settings, it pops up. The trading view integration is really cool. I love it. So obviously your canvas, that's going to be sort of your base, which is where you will see obviously these charting analysis. Symbol, that's going to be pretty much like, okay, for example, if I want to change the body candle. So for example, we all know, or if you don't know, a bull candle in this scenario is marked out as green, and that is obviously this massive up candle here. For example, a bear candle would be something that's marked out as red, and that would be in this downward candle, if that makes sense. So if you have a look here, I can change these colors. You can see now how I'm flicking between which one I might like. Let's say, for example, I'm going to stick with the blue one today. So if I want to then change my border and my wick to also be blue, I simply just go and click that here. It's very easy to do. And then, for example, let's say today we're going to keep the red as our bearish candle. So we know now, okay, remember, blue candles are up and red candles are down. So that's pretty much in a nutshell how you can maybe change the charting colors around a bit. If you want to play with the status line, you can come and do that. If you want to play with the scales, so for example, maybe you don't want to see something on here like the last high low price. You can see there in the top right corner, if I deselect that now disappears. If I go into my canvas, let's say I've got some grid lines here that I don't want to see anymore. So I always keep it on solid, for example. If you want to make a cool gradient, you can do so as well. And then if you have a look here, we've got the grid lines, right? So if you look here, it's quite difficult maybe to see on my black chart, but there's this little section here, and it's quite nice to kind of change the opacity back down to 0. If that's on 0, you can now kind of, maybe you can't really see it that well, but my grid lines will disappear, right? So maybe if you've got a white chart with black grid lines, you're going to want to maybe get rid of that or move that away. So that's something that's quite nice to do. I like to have a crosshair when I'm working on my charts. I set that on the line function. So now you can see, look, I'm moving around here. You can pretty much identify price action a little bit easier. You can move the charts around. You can pinpoint candles where you think, oh, that could be quite interesting. So that's like a really nice tip if you didn't maybe know how to do that. And pretty much what I try and do is I like to work on this analysis section, right? I like to do all my technical analysis research here. I tie it in with my fundamentals, and then I go over onto the PrimeXBT's terminals, I like to call them that, which is that trade function that I showed you earlier. So that's going to be your CFD trading as well as your crypto future section. Now, that's where I'm going to be doing execution. So if I'm interested in a trade setup, for example, then I'll go and plug and play entries based on what I'm looking at on those sections. So for the most part, you can keep this all pretty much default. If you want to add some indicators, I've got some indicators in here already. If you want to add a simple moving average, for example, you can do so. Click on it. It'll then add it in like this. If you want to change the parameters, you simply just press on the little icon next to the eye. It's a setting symbol. You can then change the color. You can then change the inputs. So for example, on the inputs here, I actually quite like the 50 MA just as a kind of dynamic resistance line, if you want to call it that. So I will keep that on the settings that I have defaulted. You might have something that is like, say, for example, 9 or 10, but this is an easy way for you to change that, right? So that's one way to do the EMA setup. Another thing that I quite like is the fractals. Now, fractals, maybe you know of fractals, maybe you don't. Fractals pretty much gives me an indication of the highest and the lowest candle at any given point in time. So for example, if I want to do the same, I just type in fractals. It will come up as Williams fractals. That's the same indicator, right? Click on it. It will then pop up in this little section over here on the left-hand side. I can then go change the settings, right? So let's say, for example, you want to change the style. Maybe you want an up candle as an up arrow or whatever it may be. You can do that all here. I'll keep the default settings that I've got now. And that's quite key for me because these arrows are actually quite nice. It's telling me the lowest and the highest point for the last sort of 3 to 4 candles that have been developing, right? So we're on the weekly time frame at the moment, so it's quite a higher time frame sort of bias, if you want to call it that. But you can see there, that was pretty much my high there. That arrow is marked it out for me. So it kind of is a nice little tool. I would just really use it as a confluence. Maybe you don't really understand highs and lows that well. This is quite an easy way to do it, right? So this is something I have been looking at quite recently, and that is the price of Bitcoin. So I think if there's any questions you might have, feel free to put them in the chat. We can discuss them later on if that's the case. But for now, I'm also going to show you maybe a couple other things. So I like to use the Fibonacci tool. I use it from a premium and discount area, if you want to call it that. So I like to trade sort of supply and demand zones. A lot of people refer to them as maybe support and resistance. It's all the same sort of thing, right? So I like to bring those in. I've already kind of changed my settings around on this, but if you want to do the same, you can simply double click on it. It'll bring up the fib retracement like this. You can then choose the inputs that you want. So let's say, for example, maybe you want the golden number. So 0.618, for example, you can click that over here and then boom, it adds it in for you. So I like to keep it quite simple, just pretty much 0% over here, 100% at the bottom, and then 50% in the middle. And what I will try and do is I will try and mark out, say, highs and lows of like significance for me. So if you have a look here, this will be quite a nice area here. And why am I interested in, say, this area? Well, if you have a look here, you can pretty much see that that was like the last sort of low before we pushed up higher. And then we've kind of trended back down. So I would like to look for some sort of support in this area, right? So you might previously know this as resistance that then turns support, for example. It's the same idea, literally. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell from a sort of technical analysis point of view. I'm on the high time frame right now, I know. So the weekly is quite long. Trades might take a lot longer to play out, but I'll work my way up from, or work my way down from the high time frame all the way into the low time frame, for example. So if you have a look now, you can pretty much see this is quite a nice area of interest. You can see how price is kind of tagged into here. We got a nice reaction up and out of it back into, say, 65,000. So I will use this as my base, and then I will look to kind of mark out the highs. So if you have a look there, there's my high. So now I've got my high, I've got my low, I've got my previous support that's now kind of turned into previous resistance that's now turned into support. Then I will take my Fibonacci tool, the same as what I showed you earlier, and I will use it from the low and I'll drag it to the high, right? So you can kind of see now that this is my dealing range that I'm working with. Now maybe dealing range might kind of sound like a complex term. It's not really that complex. It's just basically I'm measuring where price made a low and made a high, and I will pretty much look for sort of entries when price comes back down below this 50% level over here. So in this scenario, it'd be around 56,000, right? Then basically what you can do, I use the horizontal tool. You don't have to, what's called a horizontal ray. You can then also add this into your toolbar. So instead of always flicking back to go and look for that one specific tool that you might be interested in, you can just simply favorite it. So if you have a look here, there's a little star next to it and you press the add to favorite section, that'll put a little green or gold mark next to it, and then boom, you'll see it's in your taskbar all of a sudden. So that's quite a nice little tip. Maybe you didn't know that, maybe you did, but now you can see. So I will bring in this horizontal ray, right? And you'll kind of see how, if I drag that across, you can see how since price has pretty much made this new high over here, we've kind of trended back down lower, and we seem to be just kind of ranging around here, and then either potentially looking to push higher, or maybe we dip a bit lower before going higher again. So I'm not really too sure where price action might go, but this is just something that I try to put a technical analysis picture on, and I try to keep this in sort of connection with the fundamentals, right? And then I use that to make a bias and form a bias in terms of maybe potentially what sort of entries I might be interested in, right? So that's on the high time frame. I'll now drop down into the daily. You can see on the daily we have a completely different picture, but at the same point in time it kind of looks the same, right? You have your high over here, you have your low. All right, we didn't really clear this low, so I would not really say that that is my low. But if you look here, we recently did clear this, right? So this happened, I think this was actually just last week, right? So, you know, here's my swing point high. There was kind of a swing point low. We didn't really break this, so it wasn't quite like as significant. Then we tried to push higher. We didn't really break this high either. So this would still kind of be the high I'm interested in, okay? And this would be my low, right? So now my low is being taken, but my high is still left open. So if I want to do the same technique again, which is basically to pull my sort of Fibonacci tool like this now, you can see price kind of has this dealing range that's formed, right? We're sweeping liquidity on either sides. We haven't really made up our mind as to where we're going to go, but at the same time, we kind of just ranging, if that makes sense. So right now, I'm quite curious to see if maybe I can get a reaction to potentially trade lower back down into these areas here, or if price starts to kind of break above these fractal highs that I've got here, for example, then you might start to see price do something like this. But for the most part now, that's quite far away, a while from us. So let's have a look. So we've got this section that's over here now, for example. Okay, so if you look here, that is my high. This is my sort of previous low. We kind of pushed price into this area, then we dropped. We failed to break this low here, and then we kind of are like stuck in this range, right? We're just kind of chopping around. So there's no real sort of direction at the moment on Bitcoin, if I must be completely honest with you. But that's the beauty about PrimeXBT, right? We don't have to be consistently holding spot buys, you know, looking for price to be moving up higher or lower or whatever it may be. We can trade both sides of the markets, and that's kind of what I want to show you today. So here is an area that I'm quite interested in. This would be sort of my, I want to call this resistance. You can see how we came back in here, rejected this area, and we traded lower. We came into this area here and we've swept that now. So for the most part, I wouldn't really be watching this too closely in terms of executing right now. What I am maybe potentially interested in is like adding some limits and some orders, right? So if you have a look here, you can kind of see how we're forming this chain. So when I say chain, I'm kind of meaning price is holding. It seems to be trending lower for the time being. And if you have a look here, this kind of was the reaction out of that area. So if I had to do the same thing now, which would be kind of to mark that out, right? you can kind of see how we are forming this chain, right? And that's what I kind of like to refer to as my bearish order flow chain. It's quite a fancy word, if I must be honest with you. You don't maybe need to know that right now, but maybe as time passes by, this might be something of interest for you, right? So for the most part, I might actually be quite interested to see how price might react if we push back up into this area. Do we maybe get the same sort of reaction that we had here and then roll over? I'm not too sure. However, for this sort of tutorial, I want to show you if you wanted to set a limit order, this is how you could potentially do it, right? So obviously price has a sort of entry over here, which would be around say 59,500. So if I wanted to short the market from there, I would use something called my short position tool. It's pretty easy to find. You literally click over here. You can see it's called projection, right? So you have your long position tool as well as your short position tool. In this scenario, I'm looking for potential shorts. So what I will do is I'll just click on it. You can then add it to your favorites tab like I did below. And then pretty much it will show you, maybe let me make the colors a bit better for you so you can see. But if you have a look now, so my stop color, basically that meaning, wait, let me try that again. I think I might have clicked the wrong one. So short position, right, would be of something like this. Okay, so if I want to change my stop sort of colors, I would go onto the style section where it says stop color. I would then click on that and then change that. So let's make it green for today so you can see. And then if I want my target color to be, say, blue, I can just simply do that. I still can't really see that well due to the black colors. Let's maybe make it a bit brighter. Or maybe make it, that's not really working. Let's just stick with purple maybe and make the, there we go. So now you can see. So pretty much my stop color will be green, okay? And if you have a look here, it's measuring the distance from your entry point over here to that high there, okay? So that pretty much is giving me a sort of stop out level if I use my crosshair. That's why I like my crosshair, because I can use that to mark out this area, which is around 65,500. If you want to input that figure, you simply just click on the tool again, go to inputs, where it says stop, you put in the price. So I'll just say 65,500. Boom, it's there. I will then go and look now to see, okay, cool, where could I potentially target, right? So my first sort of target would be minimum 2 to 1. But if I look at that low, that's like kind of 1.23. So I might need to extend that a bit, right? So if you drag it, you can kind of see how your risk to reward, which is marked out in purple over here, is changing, right? So let's say, for example, I wanted a 2 to 1. It looks something like that. Basically, what that means now is whatever the stop out level that I have over here, let's say I'm risking $500. If price pops back into this area over here and continues to trade lower into our target profit levels down of like 48,000, for example, I will then get a 2 to 1. So what is a 2 to 1, right? So if I put down $500 and price goes in my favor, but I'm trading a target that's bigger than my stop loss by 2, that means I'll make $1,000, right? Because 2 times 500 is going to give me 1,000. It's just a quick, simple calculation that I do in my head. So for this example, it's quite nice. So I'm quite interested in maybe potentially setting some limits here. So what I will do now is I'll head over into the terminal. So again, click on trade, click on crypto futures, for example. I've got something similar marked out on the daily time frame over here. In this scenario, I want to actually kind of have entries maybe a little bit higher. So if you want to delete your drawing, you simply select it, and then I just backspace on my keyboard, and that kind of allows me to get rid of the potential drawing that I had marked out previously, right? So now if you have a look, okay, this is going to be that short area that I'm interested in, which is around here. I want my stop loss just above that, around 65,500, okay? And then I want to have a 2 to 1 going back down. So I actually think I might have the wrong, there we go. Let's do this one. So it will look something like this. Okay, and let's say I'm targeting a 2 to 1, something like that down there, right? Okay, so now what I would want to do, okay, if I want to set a limit order, if you have a look here on the right hand side, you can see we have the market function limit function, and stop function. So I'm going to show you what a market order would look like, and then I'm going to show you what a limit order would look like too. Because remember, I'm looking for the limits. Basically, that means that if price kind of comes into this area and I have a sell limit placed, it should tag me into it if price obviously meets the spread amount. And then if price decides to turn over from there, then we'll see. It could do either thing, right? But for the most part, I'm just going to manage my position like that. And if you wanted to, for example, enter a market position right now, because this is something that you're interested in, you would simply just go to where it says market order. I then have my margin type on cross currently, but I would actually want to change that to say isolated. So if you change it to isolated, you can bring it down. I want to maybe bring my leverage down to say 5 times, right? I will then click set. It then changes my margin type for me. And remember, I'm looking to sell. So in this scenario, I'm going to click sell. I'm not going to click buy. I'm going to go with a small amount here just to show you what that will look like. Let's say 1. I then click the place sell order. It then reconfirms if I want to do this position. I then press sell. Boom. Now you'll see that I'm actually in this position. So if you go down to the bottom left hand corner of your screen, you'll see it says positions. Then it says we are in BTC USD sells, right? Because remember, I'm entering sells. It will then tell me my entry price. It will then have my sort of liquidation price. So in this scenario, if price gets to 64,100, which is around here, I'm going to get liquidated, right? Basically what that means is it's going to stop me out because I don't have enough margin to run that. So if you have a look further, you also have something that's called a TP and an SL. Maybe some of the traders on here already know what that means. But basically, if I go and click the edit button, I can go change that, right? So if I have a look at the take profit level, I can go and set something. For example, in this scenario, remember, if price is trading lower, I can't be looking to take profit higher. That technically means I'm going to be taking a loss, right? So in this scenario, let's say I want to take profit at 48,000. Then what I'll do is I'll come and modify it on here. I will say, okay, cool. My take profit, I want to take profit at 48,000. Then the tool is really cool. It'll tell you, okay, cool. For this example, if price gets to $48,000, you will make roughly $97. Cool. Happy with that. Then remember our stop order now. So let's say, for example, I just want to set this. Maybe you've forgotten what your stop loss order is going to be. Set it. It'll just modify one side of the transaction, right? Now, for example, here, we wanted to get stopped out at around, say, 64,500 because we kind of know that's where our liquidation point is going to be in any case. So then I would go and click the modification button again. I would then go and press stop loss price, type that in. I go set. Okay, now, which is quite cool, it tells you your estimated profit and loss. So in this scenario, if price trades against me and into 65,500, then I'm going to lose $77, right? Which is good. I want to protect myself. So in this scenario, I'm going to keep it like that. Then you can see, okay, cool. I've got my stop loss and my take profit set. So now that's for a market order, right? Which is kind of what we just did now. So this means it's running in live. You can kind of see your unrealized profit and loss will just keep running in the corner. That pretty much means that that's what you're going to make or lose at any given point in time in the market. So it's quite nice to just track and monitor. If you say, for example, price is moving against you and you actually don't want to be in this position anymore, you simply go over to where it says close. You click on the little X button, right? It will then pop up this whole scene in front of you that says close position. So if you see here, all protective orders will be canceled. Basically what that's meaning is that anything I am actively in right now, if I press the close button, will just automatically close for me. So let's say I don't want to be in this position right now. I close it, boom. Now you can see under positions, I don't actually have anything running right now. That means we're no longer in this trade. So if I go to the orders section now, you will see there's no orders that are currently sitting there because I haven't set a limit or a stop order, right? But you can see the fill that went through and you can see your history. So under history, just something to note, right? We were selling. So in that scenario, you might see above your transactions when you close the position, the word buy. Now, remember we were selling. It doesn't necessarily mean I was entering into a buy position at the same time. But in order for me to get out of my position, I needed someone on the other side of me to basically get me out of that position. So So basically, I needed someone to buy my sell position. It's the same as if you're dealing with goods. Maybe I want to sell a coat to someone. I need someone to be a willing buyer on the other end, right? It's the same idea. So that's why don't get too confused by the word buy. It's not necessarily meaning you were in a buy or a long position. It just means that now the position has been closed and you're no longer in the trade, okay? So that's how you could execute in market scenarios. For this example, I wanted to show you what a limit would look like. So I would then go click on limit. And if you draw, that's why I kind of like to have my trading view set up. Let's say I wanted to enter into my shorts, which are around here. You can see that it was about 59,680, right? So you can pretty much enter that to the T. So let's go over here. I type in cool 59,680. Remember, I don't want to buy when price gets there because technically I would then need to enter into a stop order, right? But we'll go into more details around stop orders, etc. when the time is right. For now, this is just a limit order example that I want to show you. Remember, I don't want to buy, I want to sell, okay? So if you have a look here, if I did by accident, I was on the wrong sort of toggle button, it will tell you at the bottom, your order will be executed immediately. Because why? When price is lower than that current area where you're wanting to sell, it'll just automatically execute for you, because if you're wanting to buy, that is unfortunately the current market price is lower than the price that you want, so it automatically will fill your position, right? So I don't want to do that. I want to sell. So I want to keep my leverage to the isolated 5 times, and then I just simply press sell order, right? Now you'll see it's not a position, because remember, positions are executed in live. Those are market entries, right? I have entered into a limit position, which means I've now actually put an active order. So you're not going to see it under positions, you're going to see it under orders, right? So if you click on the orders section now, you'll see the asset that you've entered into, the price at which you've got a limit set for, and then also the amount that you've gone for, as well as potentially when the date was that you placed this, etc. So that will now be sitting there as an active order, and it's then something for you to just monitor and manage. So basically when that order goes off, especially if you have the phone application downloaded onto your mobile device, you will then get an automatic message that says Bitcoin sell executed, right? Then you can go onto that position once it's live, where it will then sit in positions, for example, and you can then go and modify your sort of take profit and your stop loss level. That's pretty much how you would do a limit order in this scenario, right? So that's pretty much how I kind of look into trading on a week-to-week basis. This is just an example of setting some market orders as well as some limit orders. So I'm quite keen to see how price reacts out of something around the $60,000 area, especially next week with FOMC. There's a bit of talk around the global markets kind of seeing a bit of a cool off because of this. We know now that Bitcoin is kind of following what traditional markets do to some degree. So maybe it's going to be in line, maybe it's not. Maybe we see sort of a de-pegging again and Bitcoin do its own thing, which is I think what a lot of people are quite interested in, especially considering the time in which we are in the current market, right? So that's pretty much in a nutshell how I would execute a position. Remember, if you want to go back and play around with any sort of trading view charting, tools, or whatever it may be, you can simply click on this widget, which will give you the analysis section, right? You click on that, then you can come back into here, which is quite awesome. Now, there is something that I did want to show you, which was quite a cool feature. And if you have a look next to where it says deposit, you have like a little purple icon that kind of looks like a gift box, all right? So if you click on that, it will show you the reward center, okay? So this scenario now, basically it's quite cool. You are sort of rewarded for trading, right? So in this scenario, I need to trade up to a volume of say $100,000, okay? And you can view this by going into your sort of, let me take you back to the crypto future section. If I go to my statistics area, right, you can see my turnover, okay? And in that turnover, you'll be able to pick up where your volume's coming from. You can also see all of the data that is sitting in your transactions, your activity log, all of those good things, right? But this is quite a cool feature that is automatically done for you. So you don't necessarily need to be doing the calculations for you. When you've traded up to say $100,000 worth of volume, you will then be able to click this accept reward. Unfortunately, I haven't done that as of yet, but as time will go by, I'll be able to show you that. You can then go into any welcome bonuses that you might have, for example. So yeah, it's just quite a cool feature that kind of incentivizes you to be rewarded for trading. I think it's a really cool feature. If you didn't know, we also have a cool copy trading platform. Yeah, you can follow any traders that might be of interest to you. You can track their sort of statistics, how long they've been active on the PrimeXBT platform, etc. We also have some pretty cool contests that are running, so you can come in here and claim rewards. I think this is really cool. So just remember, these will be all demos. So maybe, for example, this is the first time you're getting into trading, right? This might be quite a cool option for you just to get a little feel about it. And week on week, when I'm doing my sort of live sessions with you, maybe you can learn from me, right? That's the whole idea about this. But for the most part, that's pretty much what I have to say for today. So I'll see you next week in our weekly midweek market updates with Matt. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next week. Thank you.